All right, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, interior design. Did you know that was one of my favorite topics? You may not know this. My first business was as an interior decorator back in 2003. Of course, I'm not as educated and schooled as my guest today, but I was HGTV self-trained and I absolutely love design. Anyway, so today you are going to learn some design tips from a fantabulous designer, one of my extraordinary clients, Emmanuela Little, and we're going to celebrate her success as a CEO at the same time. So let me tell you a little bit about Emmanuela. She's an interior design professional based out of Hamilton, Ontario, and she offers residential interior decorating and design to busy working families. And her aesthetic and her goal for every project is comfortable yet stylish and always oozing with personal style. Welcome to the show, Emmanuela.
Thank you, Judy. Glad to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this show. All right, so why don't you, if you would, just a brief summary of your business, kind of when you got started and some of the challenges that you faced along the way.
Sure. To be quite honest, I was a very hesitant business starter-upper, if you want to call it that. I opened in December of 2012. So we've been in business for almost 10 years. But initially, I felt completely intimidated by just the whole business aspect of it. I knew I was creative. I knew I had ideas, but I just really struggled with just the idea of being a business owner. And I just felt not very business savvy. I just didn't really know kind of where to get started and how to get my feet rolling in the business, right? But then I was connected with someone who could see that potential and see that opportunity. And she actually connected me with my very first client. So as I went through and I did the process from start to finish, it was a bedroom and I did everything. I realized I love doing this. This is amazing. I can do this as a job. And that's what really kind of started the early stages of saying, okay, what does this look like? How do we get the process started? That sort of thing. So as things kind of got rolling, it was a time in my life where I was still newly married. I still hadn't had children. So it was very slow, I guess you could say, as far as the progress. It wasn't like I could just kind of hit the ground running and just, take off. So I had years that were great. And then I had years where it was, not very much business coming in. So that whole feast or famine point of view. And then having 3 children, you kind of had the highs and lows of when they were napping or when they were, just different things. And so it really was a struggle just working to kind of keep things afloat and finding the best practices that worked for me, and really getting the business to be something that was more than a hobby. A lot of people do decorating as a hobby, but that's not how I wanted to be viewed as and not how I wanted to operate. So I just didn't give up. I kept learning. I just would, use the internet or use connections or whatever, just to ask so many questions. And I just kept learning, kept going. And eventually it led me to you, but we'll talk more about that later.
That is so good. You said you never gave up.
Yep.
After you realized that you love this and I could get paid to do what I love. That is so, so awesome. So tell us about, I would love the ladies, especially those in Ontario. We have a bunch of listeners, thousands and thousands in Canada. So who are your ideal clients? And talk a little bit more about your design aesthetic.
Yes. Well, as you talked about a little bit, as you, introduced me there, we do work with a lot of families. So I find that there are people who, maybe they just moved into a home or they've been in the home for a while and what they have is just not working for them. And so they want to update. And so sometimes that requires renovation. Sometimes it's more cosmetic updates like painting or decorating with curtains and artwork. So we kind of help all sorts of people depending on what their needs are. So we work with the general contractor if that's necessary, or if they just need referrals to someone local who can help them with a specific need, then we can also provide that. And obviously help them through the process of figuring out what their needs are, so if they just need help, if their kitchen, it's going to be different and the process is going to be different than if they're just doing a bedroom. So we really just work to create an environment where there's open communication, an environment obviously that's creative and works works with their tastes and their personality. I'm very much an advocate of working to create that personal style. So versus it being cookie cutter or it being like a showroom or everything kind of being from the same place, I really strive to find that curated feeling, and that's very unique to them. So there's always a story that comes with a family and with their home and with their experiences. And so I try to really bring that to light.
Yeah, and I love that on your website, and we'll drop the link in the show notes. You are masterful at capturing that story. And from the before and after pictures, I mean, I kid you not, ladies, you can just drink in Emmanuela's website. She actually, if I can just say this, she rebranded and redid her site. And I'm telling you, it is amazing. So you are going to want to grab those show notes and just kind of take in the beauty that is Emmanuela's work. So I remember one of the ladies inside the group called your aesthetic, you know, I don't know, something with an edge, like
Yes.
it's stylish, comfy style with an edge. So
Yes.
what does that mean? And talk to the listeners who may not be interior design savvy, and they're like, okay, but how? Maybe you can also give some pointers here, like how, if I want to make my home comfy and not look cookie cutter and buy, you know, the matchy sofa, love seat, and rocker, you know, like just talk about that a little bit.
Right. Well, my design aesthetic is I don't really follow the trends per se. So sometimes you see these waves of certain things that come in and they stick around for a while. In creating those individualized interiors, I really try and help people focus on spending their budget on the things that are going to last them. So rather than just like how there's fast fashion, you might wear something for a year or two and then you discard it. A lot of people do that right now as well with home decor. And so they'll go onto the big box store sites and they'll just grab a chair or grab this or grab that without really thinking through the process. And then they realize a year or two or even a few months later, this doesn't work. And then they start all over again. And it's a frustrating process for them because they can't really envision the whole thing. They sort of piecemeal it all together. And so what I really try and do is bring about a focus where you invest your funds into the right things that are going to last. So that way it helps the environment, it's more sustainable, and it's going to help your family grow with what's there instead of feeling like it doesn't work or something's missing. And so we just then from that, you know, we really do love to mix, like not everything is expensive. A lot of times people think if I'm going to work with a designer, I'm going to be spending so much money, they're going to just bleed me dry. And that's not how a lot of people work. We really do try and work with clients to help them maximize what they have to work with. And even if it is low budget, there's a way to stretch that and to make it be so that it's classic and timeless on certain key things that can date a home really quickly. So a backsplash, for instance, you know, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm just going to have fun with it. But then 15 years down the road, you're still staring at that.
Or less. Like, what was I thinking?
Exactly. And, you know, and so that's something that I really try and encourage people for those fixed elements. Focus on something that's got enduring style and then incorporate the trends in something that's a little bit easier to change out, like a light fixture, right? So
yeah, like a pillow, like that's really basic, but like,
well, yes, or that, right?
What do you think about this? This just popped into my brain. There's a part of me that really loves wallpaper.
Yes.
Like even behind me here, this is like a gluey, this is not, what do you call that? Shiplap. This is like wallpaper. Mm-hmm. So I personally love to do wallpaper in a powder room.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you can really be bold there, and it's a small space, so it doesn't have to cost a whole lot of money, but you can really make a statement. Have you ever, do you do that?
That kind of goes in line with exactly how I think. I think a lot of people look at a powder room and they're like, oh, people are only in there for 2 seconds. I'm just going to paint it, put out some nice towels and call it a day. When really it is an opportunity, because they're only in there for a little bit, that you can kind of have some fun with it. And so I do love wallpaper. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's because I grew up in the 80s. I even worked in a wallpaper store, right? Like I love wallpaper, and it's so much better than it was then as far as the way to, you know, put it up and take it down and all that kind of thing. But you can add so much personality, whether it's through texture, right? Because there's some wallpapers like grass cloth that has a lot of texture, but not a lot of pattern. And then you also see some patterns that are just filled with, animals or woodland scenes. And it's not cutesy pootsy. Like, it's really classical. Like, it's beautiful and the colors are beautiful. So I'm all about making a splash. And in a powder room, to use wallpaper, you don't need a lot. So you're not looking at doing, a front foyer, for instance, where you've got yards and yards of wall space and stairs and a lot of waste. Right. You don't have that in a powder room.
Right. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So tell us some mistakes you see people making.
Yes.
Some people who have good taste, but they're making these mistakes. What do you see?
Absolutely. One of them is, I find that a lot of people they think that cutting corners in the budget is okay. And like I said earlier, you're going to have the things that you splurge on, and you're going to have the things that you can save money on, but you kind of need to know what that is, right? Because you get what you pay for. So when you go to a big box store, and let's say you're looking at a vanity for a bathroom, and I've had this happen with clients, they get it installed because they think, oh, it's just a vanity. What's the big deal? 2 years later, the sliders aren't working, the door sticks, just all these different things, that because they didn't invest in something that had a better quality product, it starts to fall apart. And now they don't really have the money or the means to change it, and they have to live with it. Whereas sometimes if you invest in something, doesn't have to be custom and high end and thousands of dollars, but maybe that's more made with solid wood, where there's attention to detail just in the craftsmanship, but is at a reasonable price point, the longevity of that product is going to last so much more, and your enjoyment of it is going to last so much more. So that's one of the things where it's almost like sometimes people go in thinking, I'm just going to go to, the big box store and just pick everything out. But everything from plumbing and different things, like the big box stores get their items a lot of times from overseas, and the quality that they get doesn't compare to what you would get from a bath store or from a furniture store or from, so you really kind of have to do some research there and kind of know what works for you. And again, where to save and where to splurge. I find that's, cutting corners is a big thing.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but that's a really good point. And so, me, Emmanuela, because you listen to the show, I like to give as much value as I can. So is it something where, as far as like determining, oh my goodness, where, if I can't, like, they're going to reach out to you or someone like you, right? But if the budget is such that I only have $5,000 and I want to do whatever, how do you know where to splurge the piece or whatever that you need to splurge on, and where you might be able to, go a little bit, I don't want to say cheapy, but kind of not as nice?
Well, I think the things that you use every day, or the things that are really fixed, so a tile floor can be in that home for 20 years before it gets changed, and so those kinds of fixed things are the things that I find I'm super conscious of helping clients pick things that are going to last and kind of stand the test of time. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend a ton. So for instance, let's say someone's redoing their master bathroom and it's not a big space. Well, you don't have to go and get the luxury tile at top price. You can perhaps go to a tile store that has some boxes. There's some places that have just like leftover stock of something, and you can get something in a classic pattern that they've reduced because they're trying to move that inventory out, but it's still a quality product, and you can install it and it will still be something that's not trendy, that's classic, but you got it at a discount. Versus then you take that money that you saved and you apply it maybe to the shower system that you love because you love showers, and you get something that's got really good water pressure or has some of those, bells and whistles that you're looking for. So that kind of thing.
Okay. One more design question, and I want to jump into your business.
Sure.
So if I'm looking at my kitchen and it's 20 years old, like, how do you approach someone like that? And this is a very broad question, so I don't know if it's too broad, but like when you walk in for a consultation, I'm sure you ask what their budget is and you ask what's your aesthetic and what do you want to accomplish. But what if someone is like, they're coming to you and they don't even know how to prepare to answer those questions? When you're thinking, I can't stand my kitchen, I want to get it done, kind of what would be the process for them to even put these pieces that you would need together for someone like yourself?
Well, budget is in a kitchen, a budget is a really big factor. So there are ways that you can refresh what you have, which can cost less funds versus tearing everything out and starting over, which obviously is going to, give you the maximum result, because then you can really customize it, but it also will do the maximum amount on your budget. So once I kind of hear where people are at and what they're willing to spend, then it's determining, okay, what's your biggest pain point? Is it the floors? Is it the countertop? Does the layout of the kitchen work, and the frames of the cabinetry are fine, but maybe you just want to change the door style. So we just get new doors. So we help them identify what the pain points are and then lead them to the supplier or the trade or whomever it is that can help them get that result within the budget that they have to spend.
Gotcha. Okay. Because there's always, I want everybody listening that you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And that is the value of a professional like you.
Absolutely. And that's the difference between a hobbyist and a person who does this for a living as well. And so sometimes one of the other mistakes that people make is they ask the wrong people for advice. So it could be where they're getting, every neighbor, every cousin, every aunt, every uncle to comment, which then creates confusion. Or sometimes what people will do is they'll ask their contractor for their advice. Now, that's not to discredit contractors, but that's not their wheelhouse. Design isn't their wheelhouse. So
say that again.
Design, yes, is not their wheelhouse. So by getting a designer in there, then you can really think through your space. They'll just do in a way what makes it easy for them. Again, not that they're cutting corners, but they'll just say, oh yeah, that looks fine. I've done that before. And it worked for that client. Whereas we could come in and then, really kind of say, but if you just change this, it will give you so much more flexibility in this way and in this way and this way. And because they're not wired that way, they don't come across that. So in asking just a contractor what the best layout for your kitchen is, you're just going to
mistake.
Yeah. and you might not get the full, experience.
Yes. And one quick thing on this, one example is I was out of town and my husband put up a light fixture and it's not where I wanted it to be. And the same thing happened to my son when I left him in Chicago. And I said, baby, and he goes, well, how low or whatever you think it should be? And I said, I don't know. You need to tell me the measurement and this and that and the other. And then, as I'm looking at the space, it should have been over 6 inches so that it was in line with whatever. But yes, so contractors, they mean well, but they don't know what designers know. All right, so let's talk about your business, Emmanuela. You had an amazing year after we started working together. And I want you to explain first the dollars and then the shifts in your mindset in what it's like to work with a business coach.
Absolutely. So before, like I mentioned to you, it was very feast or famine. I'd have some years where I'd be crazy busy and just working to keep up. And then I would hit a lull. And then it would seem like every time I would try and make an advancement with a client or a project, a door would close and I would just have these slow periods. And I was very frustrated by that because I didn't know how to control that. I didn't know what I could do to change those circumstances to kind of make it a little bit more predictable, And so I really struggled with that. And one of the things too was just that I found because of all of that and because of my slow learning curve and all of these things, I always lacked confidence. I compared myself to other people all the time and I never measured up. I never thought that I was as good as anybody else. And so those were some of the struggles that I had kind of before starting to work with you that would really hinder my growth, hinder my mindset, really just kind of keep me stalemated, because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to look. And sometimes I would get some information from another designer or a Facebook group or some other online thing, but it wasn't the full picture, right? It was just a piece. And so I just found it was frustrating at first, before I started working with you. And, and I actually came across you through a Facebook ad, which was really great. And I was just so excited because I felt like this is what I was looking for. This is what I needed.
Okay. Yeah. And so I don't remember that we met through an ad. That's interesting. I forgot about that. Okay. Yes. So we started working together in the fall of whatever year. Was that 2020?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. And so tell us what happened, where you were in just generally in dollars or whatever, however you want to couch it, from when we started working together and into the first couple of quarters of 2021.
Sure. So previously, I would basically, when I would look at my year end or quarter to quarter, I never made a profit. I always would either be below because I wasn't really good at figuring out how to manage expenses, or if I made a profit, it was small. So I was breaking even, and that was kind of how the pattern that had been for several years. And so once I started working with you and hearing just different things about mindset and gaining some of the training and the knowledge that I felt was missing, the first quarter of 2021, I made a decent amount of money within that quarter. And so I was happy about that. But then in quarter two, I doubled that amount. And then in quarter three, I tripled that amount.
Wow.
And that was just a matter of learning how to talk to clients better, having more confidence in myself, looking at the right types of clients, those kinds of things, and recognizing some of the pitfalls that I was making in the mindset thinking that was really hindering me. So it made a huge difference.
So I'm just curious, what does your husband say? Does he see a different lady on his side? What is
He does. And I'm smiling because, because I work alone, right? I don't have another, coworker or whatever to talk to. So he's my go-to, right? He's my best friend, and I bounce ideas off of him all the time. So I found I've had to kind of select what times it is that I talk to him, because otherwise I'll just be going on and on and on and on. And he just kind of gets like, okay, so he's excited. He's definitely happy for me. He encourages me and will do the things that he needs to do with the family or whatever to allow me the space to go meet with clients or to go to showrooms or to do the things I need to do. So he's great.
That is beautiful. It is so helpful to have a spouse and family members that are supportive.
Yes.
Because I know not everyone has that blessing. Some have their husband saying, get back to work, this isn't working, or, just the demands of the family actually are a burden instead of a support. So you're so blessed with that. Well, I would just appreciate you being very honest. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know me, it's what I always say. What's it been like working with me? Like what has it been like as far as accessibility, responsiveness, support? I'd love you to speak to that just for a bit.
Well, I love working with you. So I would find, I always really work towards being there for the coaching calls every week, because I found, especially at the beginning, like I was just soaking everything in. I would be taking notes upon notes upon notes, because there was just so much information that was valuable, that was hitting me right where I needed it. And it was filling in those gaps of the things that I didn't know, but then also once we kind of got deeper and, we would talk about different things, you were really good at pointing out and kind of giving me that tough love sometimes, because I would have these expectations, or I would have these thoughts or a pattern of the way that I did things without even realizing that I was almost jeopardizing myself by how I was thinking. And so you would call that out, and you would, really kind of help to focus me. And I can be a stubborn mule, but you were in love. Like you would just kind of repeat things as necessary as I would hit, different obstacles or struggles. And it did sink in, it might have taken time, but it did sink in. And it really has helped me to shift from just being willing to take on any client to now recognizing the clients that are going to be more profitable, the clients that are going to cause less frustration, the clients that are very fun to work with and make the job fun because we're aligned in the goal that we're trying to achieve. Whereas at the beginning, that's not how it was. I would take anything, right? I was always scrambling. How can I get more business? How can I connect here? And now I find that I don't have to. Part of that is trusting God as well.
Amen.
But I find that peace that comes in knowing what I'm looking for, instead of just constantly feeling anxious, waiting for that next kind of crumb to fall off the table, as it were.
Yes, I love it. And we spoke before we came on that I see a change in you as that CEO. You are really stepping in to what I guess I call your CEO-ness, right? Like you are calm. You are becoming more certain and more confident as a CEO, and the revenue's reflecting that, the ease with which and the joy with which you're doing business is evidencing that. So huge congratulations, Emmanuela.
Thank you.
Well, listen, as we wrap up, is there anything you have on your heart that we haven't talked about that you want to address?
Yeah, I would say that the thing that I've learned the most is just how much I was my biggest enemy. And there's still situations that come up where because I think this plus this should equal this. I see designers and they get sales and they get this and they get these kinds of clients or these kinds of opportunities. But a lot of times their journey might have been different or these different things. And so my expectations on myself are more realistic because I would put pressure on myself all the time to perform to a level that I couldn't reach because I didn't have, I wasn't working full-time hours, for instance, or whatever.
Yeah.
So really kind of identifying what some of those thought patterns were and shifting those thought patterns to be things that were more conducive to where I actually was at. I'm a dreamer. So I have this tendency of just kind of like, okay, I want to be in magazines. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I would work towards that goal without recognizing this, my website needed to be revamped and I needed to work on my process of onboarding clients. And without doing those basic things, that's all well and good, but they're going to fall through the cracks if I didn't have that foundation set up properly. So just really kind of bringing myself to that place where to say, it's okay to be where I am. I don't need to be where they are. I can be where I am and be thankful for everything that God brings and grow from that. And maybe in 5 years or 2 years or 10 years or whatever it is, all those opportunities will come. But instead of kind of just looking at that and ignoring everything else, pay attention to these things and get it right now. And then that way that client experience will be wonderful and it will lead to bigger and better things.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate that. Yeah. Getting your back end, slowing down to get your back end feeling good so that the delivery is impeccable. That is long-term investment in your business that's going to take you through for decades, really, if you'd like to be in business for that long. And then the issue of not hustling or feeling anxious about that next client, but coming from a place of trust in the Lord and a brain mindset of I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm doing my part and the Lord God will do his.
Absolutely. I can't express more how that knowledge and that confidence, it's been a process. Like it's not something that happened overnight. It was definitely steps and stages. But I've just really felt God just bring me that peace because he's gifted me with this. He's put this on my heart. I didn't go into interior design ever thinking that I would be on my own. I always thought I would work for someone else. And so this process of self-discovery and recognizing that he actually put that desire in me before I even recognized what that desire was
I love that.
Part of this whole thing. And now I can't think of doing anything else. To go and work for someone else. I don't mind working with people as a partner, no problem. But to go and just kind of give up everything that I've learned, I don't know, like God would really have to speak clearly to tell me that I need to do that at this point. So yes, it's been a journey, but a good one.
Yes, I love that. And I'll wrap it up with this. This is the power that I found in Christian coaching.
Yes.
And I never had a Christian coach, but this is what I felt lacking in the coaches that I had. They would be talking woo-woo-y stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, it wasn't me saying some whatever in the universe, but it was me going to God and saying, Lord, my life is yours. What do you want me to do? Reveal. Lord, this business that you put on my heart, just like you said, it's like, okay, God, it's yours. How do I do this? Bring the right people, whether they're vendors or clients or whatever else. So yeah, so anyone out there listening, if I have any of those ladies still in corporate, and you feel that nudge, or you're a lawyer and you'd love to put your own slate out, or doctor or other professional, maybe it's time to spend time with the Lord and say, is this the time? Is this what you're calling me to? Well, Emmanuela, I understand you have a little something for our listeners. So tell us about that.
Yes, I have a guide that explains the 5 principles of every good room design. So that way, when you're looking at a room, you know the elements that should be incorporated in there, and it really can help you with your space. So we will definitely include that as a link, I believe, in the comments, right?
Yeah, in the show notes. Absolutely. Ladies, I can tell you, Emmanuela, and you can hear it the way she's talking about design. This is going to be a resource you're definitely going to want to download. So be sure to check the show notes for that. And where online can you tell our ladies to find you? Are you on Insta, Facebook? Where should they look?
Yes. So I am on Instagram at bellacasainteriors.ca. That's also my handle for Facebook. So I've got both of those going on. And then our website is bellacasainteriors.ca. So keeps it all consistent, easy to remember, and got all the information there. We would love for you to follow us. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Like I say, Emmanuela does amazing work, and you're going to want to check out that, those feeds as well. So, Emmanuela, thank you so much for sharing your story and your words of wisdom on design. This has been so much fun.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. This was great, and I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. All right, ladies. Well, thank you for listening to this episode. If you haven't yet left a rating and review, especially on Apple, would you please take a moment and do so? And don't forget, I want to hear from you. Go to judyweber.co/podcast. Scroll down a bit. You will see a cute little microphone. I want to hear from you. Leave me your voice message. Hey, I love this episode. I love Emmanuela. And, I loved this tip. Or, hey, I have this question. Whatever it is, I want to hear from you, and maybe I'll hear your voice. We'll all hear your voice on the next episode. So once again, thank you so much, and we will see you next time.